Welcome to another episode of Sips and Screams, where twin sister horror movie fanatics sip themed cocktails and discuss our favorites in the genre. Today we are going back to 1996 to the iconic, perhaps, one of the first ever meta horror movies, the original Scream. This was written by Kevin Williamson and directed by Wes Craven. And it's a real treat from start to finish. Gives us some very, very creative kills. I'm talking to you, Garage Door. It did something no other film really did at the time. It gave us a twist on the lone killer reveal. More on that later. This one started a franchise that was also recently rebooted. And all in all, Scream is probably one of the most universally loved horror movies and just movies in general. Just a great 90s film. And we can't wait to dive in. I'm Ashley, and of course, joining me today, as always, is my twin sister, Allie. Allie, how you doing? You winding down to the holiday season?
Winding down to the holiday season. Very much looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
Got some good ones coming up. Yeah. Also really looking forward to this. I think since the moment we started this podcast, I've been waiting to do Scream, so can't wait.
And so have our listeners. When we announced that we were going to be doing Scream, a lot of fanfare for this movie.
Yes.
So this is going to be a great one. So as always, you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Our handle is at sipsandscreamspod. You can also email us at sipsandscreams.podcast@gmail.com. And we are everywhere where you get your podcasts. And if you do listen, we would love it if you could leave us a rating and a review. Okay, it's time. Allie, what time is it?
It is killer cocktail time.
And what do we have today? I'm excited about this one.
I know.
I'm also a little nervous.
Yes. And we had a couple ways we could have gone with this one.
Yeah.
For those of you who've seen it, beer is a big part of it. We've already done beer with Friday the 13th. So we wanted to switch it up a bit, think a little bit outside the box. So we are doing our version of a high school drink. We've got some fruit juice in there. We've got some vodka in there, a little splash of lime, to elevate it a little bit. And then as always, I will be topping mine off with some sparkling Topo Chico. I don't know about you, Ash.
I don't have Topo Chico. I have some bubbly, and that's what I'll be using.
Okay, so, as always.
Yeah, as always. This one's going to be sweet. Shaking it up. It tastes better.
I know. It'll be nice and cold.
So what are we calling this?
All right, wait for it. You're going to love this one. We are calling this cocktail So High School.
So High School. I love it.
So High School. All right, can we see this?
I didn't drink in high school, though, so.
Well, this is an alternate universe of high school, but, a lot of people were. All right, let's get that in there. See, mine today, Ash, looks like a decent color. Look at this.
It does. Yours does look good. Once again, I poured the perfect amount. Okay, so I'm topping mine up.
Same with some Topo Chico. This is for all of you Topo Chico fans out there. I know you love it.
We should get a sponsorship from Topo Chico.
You should.
You talk about it
every
a lot.
time. I do. And our listeners love it. Who doesn't love Topo Chico? It's
so
refreshing.
Good.
It's delicious.
It's refreshing. So, this is an ad for Topo Chico, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It's good. It's decent.
It's actually pretty good. Yeah. I was a little scared about the fruit juice, not going to lie. A little sweet. I just kind of put a little bit in there and a little bit of lime juice and then cutting it with some Topo Chico. It's pretty good.
So when I went to get fruit juice, because I don't know. I don't know the last time I bought fruit juice, to be honest.
I'm not sure I ever have bought fruit juice.
But I got this Powerade Body Armor type of fruit punch. So
like
it's also a little healthy. Yeah. So uppers and downers here.
There you go, Ash. There you go. We are also dressed for the occasion today.
We are. We're paying homage to.
We're channeling. Yeah. We're channeling our inner Gale Weathers today.
Gale Weathers. Well, you definitely are. Listeners, Allie is wearing.
I'm literally wearing
fluorescent yellow,
That's right.
Gail's iconic pantsuit. Or it wasn't a pantsuit; it was a skirt suit, I guess. But I want that.
Yeah, so great though.
So good. Really popped
everything
on
she
screen.
wore in this movie.
Yeah,
it did. And Ash is wearing some sort of neon pink color. I believe that is Ash.
Yeah, I found this in my closet. Here we go. All right, we are moving on to Sips and Synopsis. Allie, take it away. Tell us about the plot of Scream.
Very excited too. We're going back 28 years for this one. Ash, I can't believe it's been 28 years since Scream came out.
It rewatching it holds up. I'm like, it's filmed
It does hold up.
It's
Kind of
filmed. It
timeless.
looks more modern. Yeah, it's really, really good.
Maybe because the 90s are back in now, right? So
They
the
are.
clothing, the decor,
90s
even in the homes
coded.
and everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. But this, as you mentioned, written by Kevin Williamson of Dawson's Creek fame. And, I think he wrote after this one a string of horror movie hits.
Oh yeah,
Right?
cast
This,
all
yeah.
of the Dawson's Creek.
Exactly.
cast.
All of those like young, like hot, like young actors at the time were in all of his horror movies.
Yeah.
And directed by the iconic Wes Craven. So just that combination together, so amazing. This was
good.
originally to a low budget film at the time, right? It was
really?
considered low budget. Yeah, it was considered
wow.
low budget. I think it was made for 13 or 15 million.
Oh.
So it wasn't set up as a success. They weren't sure it was going to be a success. We of course know that it went on to be a huge box office success, a sleeper hit, if you will.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it came out, I think it was December 1996 when it was released. And it starts off right away. I'm going to say this. I think this is the best opening sequence in any horror movie. I'm going to say it.
So I have, when we get to rip-offs later, I agree. I think
Yes.
it's absolutely amazing, but
Yes.
there's one other one that challenges it.
Okay.
And I know about that later.
And I know
what
what
I'm
is.
talking about.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm excited to talk about that and the comparisons and contrast it. But this one, just Kevin Williamson wrote a really great script. It starts off right away. We are introduced to let's call her our fake protagonist.
Yeah.
Casey
Right.
Becker, right? Played by, again, amazing actress, Drew Barrymore.
Yes.
So she was really billed as the lead of this movie. And I'm excited to talk more about that too. But so it starts right out. She's home in this big house in Woodsboro, California. So it's the setting of this movie takes place in Northern California, I guess it is. And all these homes that they live in.
It's kind of rural. They
They're
have,
kind of,
farmhouses.
it's like, I think it's like close to like wine country or something, right?
Yeah.
And so she's in this big house. She's home alone. She's getting ready to watch a horror movie. And she gets that Jiffy Pop popcorn on that stove.
Yeah.
So she's getting ready to settle in. But I think the opening scene, you see clearly something's watching her, right? But you see her answer the phone. So from the very beginning, they're setting that tone and the phone rings. So the phone in this movie, landlines, cell phones, they're almost a character in themselves, I'd say, Ash.
They are. I mean,
Yeah.
I think this sold more portable phones, this movie.
So, yes, the portable phones. Yes, yes.
I really liked Sydney's. I loved her the white portable phone that she
me
had.
too.
I
Yes.
loved that one.
Yeah, I feel like we wanted it once we
did.
watched this movie.
Yeah.
This was the time before, for those of you who kind of grew up in the smartphone age, this was the time before smartphones. So we're talking like flip phones, barely caller ID, once we get to the cell phones.
Those brick cell phones that they use later, like the Zach Morris
I
brick
know.
cell phone. That's about what they had. And then
Yeah.
you can really put that in your pocket. So they had some other
I
cell
know.
phones.
It's amazing. So Casey Becker receives this phone call. And at first, it's kind of innocuous at first, right? It's this man on the other end. She's kind of very almost flirting
She
with
is,
him.
yeah.
Kind of asking what she's doing. She's
Why do you want to know my
flirting with him.
name?
Yeah.
Why are you
exactly.
flirting with the stranger on the phone?
I know. I mean, to be fair, Ash, she didn't know that it was a serial killer, right?
She didn't.
She thought maybe it was her boyfriend or someone playing a trick on her.
Mm-hmm.
So she picks it up. She's flirting with him. She hangs up. He keeps calling back, and I think when she starts to realize that this isn't someone playing a trick on her, he says to her, he's like, I want to know who I'm looking at, right?
Oh,
and I
yeah.
think that's when that happens, and that's within the first few minutes. She realizes that things might be a little more sinister than she thought.
Yeah.
So she's continuing to get angry. They kind of go back and forth on this. Again, that Jiffy Pop is just popping and smoke's coming from it. But he tells her that he wants to play a game. And so he's going to ask her questions about horror movies.
What
She
kind of
gets
a
them
game?
right.
She's just sobbing at this point.
She's hyperventilating. She's freaking out during this whole thing. And she even says, her boyfriend Steve's going to be there soon and he's going to kick his ass.
Yeah.
And then we find out that this person on the other end knows Steve, right? It's his name's Steve.
Yeah.
And he asks her to go to the patio door and she turns on that patio light and her boyfriend Steve is tied to a chair.
Yeah.
Mouth taped shut. And so duct tape shut. Yes. He's out there, he's
Letterman coat on.
Yeah. He was a football player. I think he was very classic high school characters here. Yeah. So at this point she plays his game, right? So he asked her some questions. But he asked her that fateful question about Friday the 13th and who the killer was. She's sure it's Jason, but That first one, as we know. Yeah.
If she listened to our podcast, she would know that it was Mrs.
Right.
Voorhees.
She would have got that right.
Not Jason.
Pam. Pam Voorhees, right? She was the actual killer in the original Friday the 13th. So poor Steve. Poor Steve gets gutted from behind.
How?
Just his gut pouring out. I know. I have take some contention with that because his guts are just pouring out. So he just dies. At this point, she's obviously freaking out. The doorbell rings. They throw a chair through the patio door. So Casey's outside. This is the first time we see Ghostface. So it's this figure with this ghost face, this black cloak. It's like in the house. She's freaking out.
The Grim Reaper with the
it does
elongated.
Look like the Grim Reaper. It is.
We need to talk about that mask.
Yeah, we do. It's do you want to talk about that now, Ash? Or do you want to save that for later?
I mean, I just want to put it out there that like it's probably the least scary of the masks, right?
Yeah, it's not that scary. Even the face itself, and I love how they make fun of it in Scary Movie in the parody. And he's almost like smiling, raising the tongue or something. It's
It's Wes Craven's idea. Like to have that mask, and people thought it wasn't going to be. They were like, "That's not scary. People are going to laugh at it," which they do. But I mean, look, it's
I know
still
all these years later, and what's come from it. Yeah, but it is not Michael Myers. It is not Jason Voorhees. No. It is not Freddy Krueger. I agree with you on that. Maybe a little scarier than Chucky, Ash.
Yeah, maybe.
So she's outside. She knows that she's in trouble. She's trying to run away. That popcorn is just like burning, right? Yeah. Just smoke going off. The fire alarm's going off. And she sees her parents' car come down the driveway. And so she's trying to run towards them. And at this point, Ghostface comes from behind her and stops her. Yes. And so he stops her. So I believe it's like so much so that she can't scream anymore.
Her trachea. He
her trachea. Her. Yeah. And so the parents come home and they come in and they just went on, I guess, date night. They're none the wiser. They just come in. She's trying to scream at them. But they come in and immediately see that something's wrong, right? Everything's messed up in the house. That popcorn, the fire alarm's going off. And they pick up the phone because she had the phone at this point. Casey Becker had the phone. And they actually hear, that part. They hear their daughter like dying effectively.
Yeah.
Oh, that scene. That scene is brutal.
It's brutal. Brutal.
Yeah. And so they are freaking out. The husband tells the wife, he's like, go drive down to the Mackenzies, right? Yeah. Definitely.
Not to Halloween.
Not to Halloween. Lots of nods to Halloween in this one. And they go outside and they see Casey's body, gutted body, hanging from this really tall tree in their yard. And it zooms in on it and it is terrifying.
They did that quickly too.
They did.
She stabbed.
They turned that around.
She's like crawling, trying to like yell it to her mother. And they go inside. It's not even 1 minute. And he hangs her from the tree and she's all gutted. But the best part of that, like the thing that makes it so scary is like the zoom in, right? It zooms into like her face and Drew Barrymore's dead.
And it's Drew Barrymore. And then
it's like scream. And you're like, holy.
And you're like, you're not expecting it. We watched that in the theater, right? You're not expecting it because Drew Barrymore was billed as the top star of this movie. And she's killed within the first scene, right? She's gone within, I think she had 12 minutes of airtime and she's gone.
So memorable.
So memorable. And I think it did a lot for horror, right? When you had the famous people, they were always kind of thought to live and she didn't. So I love that they kind of turned that on its head. That's the opening scene. Cut to introduction to our actual protagonist of the movie, Sidney Prescott.
The bait and switch.
She is played, such a bait and switch. She's played by Neve Campbell. So that, Neve Campbell of, at the time, Party of Five fame. So she was in another one of those kind of classic coming of age dramas. All those ones that were on the TV.
The most depressing one.
Yeah.
Party of Five. My God.
Yeah.
Like it was like
the depressing version of Beverly Hills 90210, I think, in the 90s. Yeah. So she's in her bedroom doing homework and her boyfriend, Billy Loomis, arrives at her bedroom window.
Nod to Halloween.
Yep. Definitely a nod to Halloween. Also a nod, I think, to Nightmare on Elm Street.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely nod to all of those. Yes.
And the evil version of Glenn.
That's right. Oh, he is the evil version of Glenn. I love that.
Yeah.
So Billy Loomis, of course, takes the name. We remember that Halloween we did a couple of episodes ago. Dr. Loomis. So they have the same last name. Again, Kevin Williamson, obviously inspired by Halloween. So Billy is, he has plans, right? He's sneaking in to see his girlfriend. He's definitely trying to get her to hook up with him. She gives him a little bit of action, but then a little bit.
He's just like pressuring her. He's the worst.
He's definitely pressuring her many times in the movie. I'm not okay with that. So we learn Neil Prescott, Sydney's father, comes in and interrupts, the intimate moment between Billy and Sydney, and we learn that he's going to a conference tomorrow. So he's going to be away for the weekend. We learned that.
Staying at the finest hotel, the Airport Hilton. He says it a few times, right? The Airport Hotel.
I think that was some product placement for Hilton, Ash.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Like, we get it. You're staying at the Airport Hotel.
Yeah. We never learn what Neil Prescott does. Do we know what he does, Ash? I'm not sure what he does.
I know that he travels for work and stays at the Airport Hotel. So I don't know. He sure doesn't get to go downtown and see the city. They're putting him up at that Hilton.
Yes,
outside the
that's
airport.
Right.
So, like, I don't know what he does.
Yeah, maybe we should do a deep dive and find that out. So at this point, Sydney's putting a stop to that, and Billy's on his way out, but not before a quick flashing, PG flash from his girlfriend Sydney.
I was not expecting that when that scene happened. I just need to say, like, Billy's the worst. When he comes in, you know what he says to her? He's like, I was at home. The Exorcist was on. Got me thinking about you. That was his pickup line. He was watching The Exorcist. So what he thought of his girlfriend?
Ash, what part of The Exorcist do you think reminded him of Sydney, of his girlfriend? What part?
I don't know, because he was like just saying
vomiting.
They used to be like hot and heavy, and now they're not. Like, what was it about The Exorcist? Yeah, the vomiting, the possession. I have no idea.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
It was
the
really
swearing, the crucifix scene. Who knows? I'm not sure. Maybe it was that. Actually.
What a romantic thing to say. I can't believe she didn't want to hook up with him then and there.
Yeah, can't believe she ended that. Okay, so that's the end of that night. Billy's not getting any more. And now it's the next day.
Bye, Billy.
Bye, Billy. It's the next day, and we're introduced to the rest of the friend group at high school, and there's a lot of police presence at high school. So everyone's kind of learning that Casey and Steve did not have a good night. That they were both
they were unalived.
Unalived that night.
But people weren't freaking out as much as they should be.
They weren't. And she's like, I sit next to her in English. Like, my God.
Like, she just got gutted and stabbed to death. Like, what?
Yeah. But we're introduced at this point to the rest of the friend group. So let's go through it, right? Got Sydney's best friend, Tatum, played by Rose McGowan. So again, a great character turn for her there.
Great wardrobe. Her wardrobe was awesome.
Such a great wardrobe. I know. And you know that she picked all that out herself, right? Her wardrobe.
I did not know that.
Yes. So I guess she was supposed to be more tomboyish. And she didn't like all of that. So those were her own. She went to the mall and got those clothes herself. So I agree.
Oh, really?
Great wardrobe.
Oh, cool.
Yes. So Tatum, her boyfriend, Stu, played by Matthew Lillard. And then Randy. He
always has his tongue out.
He does.
He was always just like sticking out his tongue.
Yeah,
like,
he's very, his facial expressions, right? Like he's very,
he's comic relief.
He is. He's some good comic relief. There was a lot of comedic tones in this movie, which I think is great. And then the final friend is Randy. So Randy played by Jamie Kennedy. So he's kind of the nerd, I guess, of the group. He's also
the cinephile.
The cinephile. I think there are a lot of them, right? Especially the men. So Billy, Stu, and Randy, they seem to know a lot about movies, specifically horror movies.
Yeah, obsessed with it. Yes. Randy works at the video store.
Yes, that's right.
Very 90s
similar
coded.
to very 90s. That's like how they did it at Dawson's Creek and like
it was the 90s.
A lot of other shows. I know. I feel like Kevin Williamson must have worked at a video store at some point or something, and that's why he wrote that in, because the same thing in Dawson's Creek.
Yeah, Pacey.
Yeah, and Dawson, they both worked there. And besides the students, those 5 students, we are also introduced to Gail Weathers, the iconic. I'm going to call her iconic
for her.
Right? I know. Gail Weathers, played by Courtney Cox, of Friends fame at the time, right? By Courtney Cox. She is a news anchor. And we learned that she actually covered the story. This is where we learn, actually, that Sidney Prescott's mother, Maureen Prescott, was raped and murdered the prior year.
Yeah, just 1 year ago.
1 year ago.
Yeah.
And interesting, right? Neil Prescott was like, I'm out. I'm going to a conference 1 year later. He wasn't sticking around for that.
No. And
yeah.
Billy's just like pressuring her and just, her mom died.
It's been
What is
1 year
wrong with
ago.
you people?
My God.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gail Weathers. So she's the one that covered the story. She wrote a book about it. She doesn't think that the person that was convicted of it, Cotton Weary, is actually guilty. And so kind of all these little tidbits are coming to the fray. And when we first meet Gail Weathers, and Sydney, of course, does not like her, right? Yeah. So they have a lot of contention there. And then Dewey. Then we're interested in Dewey.
Dewey.
He's the sheriff's deputy, Ash. He's 25 years old.
How is he 25 and the sheriff's deputy?
He's 25 years old. We learned that he lives at home. Lives at home with Tatum and his parents, but he's Tatum's brother. And so him and, I think immediately when he meets Gail, right, there's a crush there. And so that's a blossoming, I guess,
her blue eyes are very mesmerizing. Right. She looks good in this. Courtney Cox,
she does look
the
great
haircut with like the blonde highlights and that little suit she wears. She's awesome. Yeah.
And she's playing kind of off character, right? Because usually she was like the nice, like in Friends, we all know her as Monica. So in this, she's kind of that bitchy character. It's great.
She had to fight. She had to fight for the role.
Maybe not even bitchy. I'm going to say assertive.
Yeah.
Assertive. She's assertive. And I love that. It's such a great character.
She's sassy.
Movie, she is. This movie has such strong female characters. Yeah. It's amazing. And I think, it really takes that, like Final Girl really takes some of those older horror movies one step more. I absolutely love it. So we've got Sydney and we've got Gail. So there's obviously some uneasiness in the air, right? Two of the high school students, a little bit, were murdered the night before. So Sydney wants to not be alone since her father's going to be gone. So she's going to stay the weekend with Tatum and Dewey and their parents. So it's the end of the school day. Sydney takes the school bus home. Did you notice as you clock this?
She takes the
yellow school bus home to her huge house.
Beautiful farmhouse.
Beautiful farmhouse.
So her dad must do something big in his traveling.
Yeah.
Staying at the airport.
Maybe it's in the wine business, Ash. Yeah, maybe. They are in like Northern California. I don't know.
So he takes his clients to the Hilton restaurant by the airport, like to wine and dine them.
I don't know, Ash. Maybe it's like a client that's flying in and they don't have a lot of time.
Oh, maybe.
So he's like,
don't you worry. I'm
to the
staying
airport,
right here.
Hilton. I've reserved their nicest conference room just for you.
I like Hiltons. Just at the airport.
Just at the airport.
I recently stayed at a Hilton. It was lovely.
Yeah, they're nice. They're nice. As you know, I stayed at that's where I stayed in room 1408 in Atlanta.
That's right. Yeah.
All back to our very first episode, 1408.
Go listen.
Yeah. So she's getting ready, and then Tatum says that she'll be there at 7 to pick her up.
Wait, what is she getting ready for? Aren't they just like watching movies?
Well, she's packing and getting her stuff ready for the weekend.
She's
right?
going
to stay the weekend there. But Tatum's not going to be there for a couple of hours, so she takes a little nap on that couch. Afternoon turns to dusk.
Oh, I hate that.
I know. I love that you have the same reaction I do. I have a visceral reaction to dusk. It's so creepy. I hate it. It's uneasy. It's like the Sunday night scaries. It's all of that added in together. I hate it. But she sleeps through and now it's dark. She wakes up. It's after 8. Tatum's late. Yeah. Tatum calls, said that she's apologizes for being late. She's going to go pick up a movie for them. And City's just like, okay, just like hurry and get here. Yeah. And then the phone rings again, but it is not Tatum this time.
No, it's not.
No. So City picks it up. It's that same familiar voice that we heard the night prior.
Hello, Sydney.
Is that it?
Hello. What's your favorite scary movie?
Yeah, I feel like he went like the actor said this, like it's not so much scary at the beginning. It's kind of like he's trying to like lure them in, right? Because like what girl's going to stay on the phone with like the prior voice you gave? It's got to be like more than that. It's got to be more.
Why can't they just hang up? Obviously it's the movie, but like just hang up. You would end it. Maybe they'll still kill you, but like just don't.
We don't have to deal with that anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, she thinks it's Randy, her friend Randy. And then he's like, it's maybe because I'm not Randy. Yeah. But, they have some back and forth. He says he's at the front door. She calls his bluff. She goes out there. There's no one there. But then she goes back inside. And I think it's so interesting, right? Because she's talking to Ghostface when she thinks it's Randy. And she's saying that she doesn't like horror movies because it's a cliche of women and they're always running up the stairs instead of going out the front door. And ultimately that is what she ends up doing once she's running away from Ghostface. Yeah, they all do that.
In the the meta horror version of it, like they're just really dissecting all these other horror movies and then they end up doing the opposite of what they say to do. So it's, learning a lesson
smart.
there. She is
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Sydney's smart, right? So
she's
she
really
goes
smart.
she goes up to her bedroom. So she's not able to call anyone anymore. I think they cut the phone lines or something, right? But she goes into her bedroom and she emails 911.
Yeah,
Did you see that? Or is it email or
Emails.
direct message? I'm not sure what that was, but
I
she
know, it's
does
like
get in
some
touch.
old school computer. Yeah.
Yeah, she gets in touch with 911.
Also, how
So
many
she does call the
doors? She's
cops.
like shutting a lot of doors. There's a lot of doors in those.
There were. Well, I think it was her.
And
She
same with
shuts her bedroom
Casey's.
door, and then it was like her closet door, and she used that to
Just
help.
so
I
many
guess.
doors and windows. Like they have to go
Yeah.
and shut them all. I noticed that too at the beginning with Casey because she has to go lock every single window and door. I'm like, why are they open anyway?
That's true. Yeah. Why are they unlocked? I don't know
Why
about
are they
that.
unlocked?
I think because like this was like a safe rural town, Ash. Although her someone was just murdered a year prior, so
Yeah.
you think you'd be on high alert, but
Yeah,
they weren't.
exactly.
They were kids. So she's manages to fight off Ghostface, or he ends up leaving, right? And then all of a sudden, Billy, her boyfriend, back at that bedroom window, and he comes in, and then what falls out of his pocket but a cell phone. So she's immediately, and it's interesting too, right?
burner
So
phone?
but it's like a cell phone falls out of his pocket, and she immediately is like, "Oh, he was the killer."
Yeah.
Right. And I thought that was kind of interesting to jump to that kind of conclusion.
Because
Did
I
he
don't
not
think
have a
having cell phones, it wasn't like
thing
a
back
common
then?
thing.
Okay. Okay. And like clearly it was a cell phone because he was in the house. So he wasn't calling from a landline somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So she sees that Billy gets arrested. He keeps claiming his innocence, but Billy gets arrested. Cops finally show up. Tatum shows up, and Sydney goes over, to Tatum and Dewey's house and stays there.
But the father, when he gets arrested and they're like questioning Billy
Billy, yeah.
at the station, his father, because he said, well, I was at Sydney's last night too, and he was also there tonight. His father looks so suspicious at Billy. Like
Does
his
he?
father does not believe him. Go rewatch that. The father just kind of looks like, what the hell? He's like,
did
I think
you
you're
murder?
guilty.
Yeah, I think you are Ghostface.
Yeah,
I also think you
he's-
murdered Maureen Prescott last year.
Yeah,
I've had my
exactly.
suspicions.
He just go watch it. His face, it's really funny. He's just like, oh my goodness.
Okay, I
don't know who
rewatch
I'm
that.
living with here. I don't know who my son is.
Iconic. So Sydney, of course, is at the police station at this time, right? Billy's arrested. They're gonna wait to clear his phone records.
Yeah.
So they want to see. So I guess it took a while back then. They weren't just
Yeah,
like typing this in
overnight.
the computer. Yeah. So it's gonna take overnight. So they're gonna have to hold Billy. Sydney's there with Dewey and Tatum at the police station, and also Gail Weathers shows up. So she always, she's again, she's pretty good at her job. She's where the action is. She gets
is.
there. Yeah, she gets there.
She's that trashy TV reporter,
She is.
as she describes herself.
I know. She wrote a book.
Like tabloids.
But she's
she
like
wrote
kind of
the
famous.
book.
They know her. Everyone knows her, right? So she's kind of famous, I think.
But she wrote the book, and Sydney
Yeah.
is not like her because she talks
No.
about the fact that Sydney's testimony, right, was
Put
kind of
Cotton.
the nail in the coffin for Cotton
Yes.
Weary, who's Liev
That's
Schreiber. I don't know if we know that in this movie, but I think they show him.
They show him, but yeah, they only show him on TV. Yeah, so
Yeah.
he's on TV when they show him going from the courthouse, but he's not. And we don't see him live as a character in the first one.
Yeah, but I guess, Gail's book really, disses Sydney and says that,
Yes,
she
it
falsely
does.
identified him and he's
Yeah.
actually innocent.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the drama between the two of them.
But he did have an affair with her. So Cotton did admit to that, right? So I think that, and we kind of find out that there were sort of rumors going around that Sydney's mom was having affairs.
was about
Promiscuous-
town.
Yeah,
Promiscuous
about town.
woman?
She was having affairs with not only Cotton Weary, but I guess some other married men.
other married
so we
men.
find out. Yeah,
The Woodsboro,
Yeah.
I don't know, lady of the night.
Lady of the night. Well, there wasn't a lot to do out there. You saw how rural it was, Ash.
That's true.
Maureen Prescott made her own fun.
She sure
She
did.
paid, and she paid the ultimate price for that.
She did. Yeah.
So Sydney is not happy with Gail that she just showed up there. Not happy with a lot of things, and actually punches Gail out.
Right in the face.
Right in the face.
What a right hook.
I know. That was a pretty amazing scene. So now it's nighttime. Sydney's back with Tatum and Dewey at their house, right? And the phone rings again. So Ghostface knows where she is. And I think that's an important plot point.
Yeah.
That Ghostface knows that she's staying there. And so she picks up. I love that they just call him. They're like, oh, it's for you. It's like, you don't ask who it is.
Yeah.
You
Like,
know,
"Is Sydney there?" They're like, Sid, it's for you.
What? Yeah, it's for you. It's like, my God. Although maybe he didn't use that voice, Ash, when he asked for Sydney. Because like
wouldn't
you'd
they
be a little
recognize the
suspicious.
voice?
Yeah, you're right. They would. So they would recognize. I would think that it was like one
I
of her
think he
friends.
used that voice.
He's like, let me speak to Sydney. And they're like, okay.
Hold on, I'll go get her.
No worries. She's right here.
She's right here.
So she goes out and then, Ghostface tells her that she fingered the wrong guy again. And so that's setting up the fact that, Cotton Weary did not kill her mom.
Wait, so the quote is "you fingered the wrong guy again"?
That's what I've written. That's what I've written down, Ash. Listeners, let us know if that's what the actual line is, because I think so. That's what I wrote down, Ash. So I'm pretty sure that's it. Yeah.
All right.
So it's the next day at school. Again, lots of news people there, right? Everyone knows now that Sydney was attacked by Ghostface. And so it's very reminiscent of the year prior when her mother was attacked.
Right.
So there's a lot of tension at the school, a lot of anxiety, going on. The principal's very on high alert as well.
The fact that they're going, that they're still going to school, though, is hilarious.
I know.
They're like, oh, you'll be safe at school. I'm like, have you not seen Nightmare on Elm Street?
It's not safe at school.
Have you not seen that movie?
And so I do want to take this opportunity to talk about this other cameo. Well, there's two cameos kind of in this morning at the school, right? But one of the cameos when Sydney arrives to school is there's a reporter.
Yes.
Did you catch this? Yes.
Yes.
And so she's like, the people have the right to know. And it's actually Linda Blair, the Exorcist.
Yeah.
Right? The original girl in The Exorcist. So I love
Maybe that's why they put in, like, I was watching The Exorcist.
Like, we have to have
you.
Yeah, exactly. And then we see Linda Blair. So that was a really great cameo.
People have a right to know.
I know. She was very dramatic.
Very dramatic.
So they're in school, and who else is back? So we learned that Billy's cell phone was clear, right?
Back.
So he wasn't the one making the calls, and he just immediately goes to Sydney and again is pressuring her.
And she apologizes.
She apologizes to him. It's like, I want my girlfriend back. It's like, dude, she lost her mother and she was attacked last night.
Yeah, and you're just like so creepy. You're
creepy.
Too much, Billy.
Yeah, if ever there was like a suspecting villain, and again, when you're watching it the first time, right, you're like, oh, it's kind of like overkill. So like, is that a red herring?
Yeah.
I do kind of like the way they did that. But Skeet Ulrich played it pretty creepily. He's just like a creepy dude.
Yeah.
He's creepy. And that's her boyfriend. He continues to pressure her. But she goes running away. Like, that seems great too, right? They made fun of that a lot. Sydney's running.
Yeah.
She goes to the bathroom, and again, she's attacked by Ghostface yet again. So Ghostface in the bathroom.
That bathroom,
though. In
the
stall.
It's the woman's bathroom. Those stalls, they were like so dirty, and there was so much like toilet paper and stuff on the ground. Did you?
That's what you noticed.
Yeah, I clocked that.
You think like a men's bathroom would be like that, but like not a woman's bathroom, Ash?
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's like a high school bathroom. It just was really gross. I don't know. I just thought it was gross.
I want to know how long Ghostface was standing on top of that toilet for. So he just knew she was coming in there. You think maybe it wasn't? I believe it was Ghostface. Oh, it was maybe one of the students. So I think we're learning too, right, the next day that there's a lot of this Ghostface costume is just readily available. And people are wearing those masks and kind of running around the school.
But that scene was absolutely pivotal. Maybe it was actually Ghostface, but that was pivotal because of the boots. Right?
Yes, the boots. You see the boots.
He steps down with those combat boots, and then everyone's wearing them. Everyone and their sister is wearing those combat boots.
The principal has them on. The sheriff has them on.
Tatum has them on.
Oh, does she?
Yeah.
Oh, she does.
They're throwing you everywhere. They're like, who is the killer?
I love that because you didn't, and taking you back when we watched it, you didn't know. Like, you didn't. Like, I
think it sets you up like because they look like a cop's uniform.
Yeah.
So it definitely points you to like Dewey.
Yes, it does point you to Dewey. And there's a lot of things that point to Dewey throughout the movie.
Yeah. I mean, his overall demeanor.
Yeah. Okay. So the principal, and even the principal's voice, very menacing when he's giving those announcements. So he makes the announcement, right? The school has canceled. There's a 9 p.m. curfew. And the principal, played by Henry Winkler, such a great role and character. But he unfortunately meets his demise.
Drink. Yeah. Poor Henry Winkler.
Yeah, but halfway through that movie. So Ghostface kills him. Not before he goes into the hallway, though, and meets the janitor, Fred. Another fantastic cameo played by Wes Craven, right? So he's got the striped red and green sweater, the hat. Yeah. So that's Wes Craven.
Like, not you, Fred. He's like, what?
Yeah, so good. But yeah, so the principal dies, and I guess later, I think he was found like hung from the football stadium or something.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. That everyone seems excited to go check out. But like how? Because I really don't understand when they knock on the door. And then they open the door immediately, and there's just no one there. They're just gone. So like Ghostface knocks, and they're immediately
gone. Yeah, I
run down the hallway. Like, where are they going?
I don't know, Ash. Yeah, I agree. That's kind of an odd one. Yeah. Like, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
The school's canceled. There's now a county-wide curfew, a town-wide curfew. Yeah. And Stu thinks, now this would be a great opportunity to host a big party. right? So
Yeah, why not?
Stu, Matthew Lillard's character, is going to host a party at his house. So he puts Tatum and Sydney in charge of getting the food. And he covers, I guess, everything else. And so basically, like, everyone in high school is invited to this thing, his party out in the middle of nowhere. So Tatum and Sydney go to town with Dewey, and they go to get their food. So Dewey at this point, right, is like watching them basically. He's going to kind of be their like chaperone, I guess. So they're in the grocery store getting the food, which is, I think, basically consists of chips, like tortillas.
No, like, okay. The choices for this party, they're in charge of getting the food for the party.
But they're high school. Remember that.
I know, but it's like Doritos or like nachos, and then one thing of popsicles, and then one little thing of Ben and Jerry's for like the whole party. That's what they got. I think it was 3 packs of chips.
I noticed the popsicles. I did notice the popsicles.
4-pack of popsicles and a little thing of Ben and Jerry's for the whole.
No one eats the Ben and Jerry's. I don't see anyone eating the popsicles or the Ben and Jerry's. Yeah, that was just product placement.
They're like 17 like popsicles and a little thing of ice cream that they just share.
And like, where did they put them? They just like put them in the car and drove out there too. Like, those would be melted by the time you got there.
When they go to the house, they're like proud of their choices. It's like, food's here. Yeah. Come and get it. It's like popsicles. I can't.
I did not stop, but that is hilarious. Yeah, that would not be the choice. Like, get some, like, I don't know, like,
get more chips.
Yeah, more chips. Right? Yeah, more like chips. A dip, maybe a dip. Throw like a dip in there. That might be good.
Maybe some sort of hummus.
Yeah, maybe a little microwavable thing.
Maybe some hummus, like a big thing back there.
Jiffy Pop. Yeah, well. Yeah. Okay, so now we are effectively in the third act of the movie, which is a really long third act, but it takes place right at Stu's house party. Right. So as you said, the girls arrive with their food, their popsicles and their ice cream and chips. Yeah. And you know, at that point, everyone else is pretty much already there. You've got Randy there, Stu's there. They're all drinking, and they're watching Halloween. And I love that. So I think one of the great I forgot about that and you're rewatching it. One of the great things about this movie is that they're rewatching Halloween. And so you actually get the music from Halloween in this movie.
Yeah.
Because they're watching it on TV and it's so great. And we all love that. The din, 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 and it's so great. Yeah. So they're watching Halloween. They're all really into it too, I got to say. Yeah. Right? They're really into this. Like, people are getting murdered and they don't care. They're really into it.
And they're just watching this horror movie. I think you get to see a lot of the iconic scenes too. They zoom in on it. The timing though doesn't necessarily. My one bone to pick with that is that the timing doesn't really.
I thought the same thing when I was watching it. The timing doesn't. You're like, no, more time would have passed.
That would have been like 30 seconds. Yeah. Yeah. And all this other stuff happened in the movie.
I think also that third act, it's like 40 minutes of the movie or something, right? A lot of things take place in that house at the end. Yeah. And so
it's like a vibe. It's so cool.
It's such a good vibe. It's so great. And so they're all watching the movie and Stu asks Tatum to get some beers from the garage and poor Tatum. Yeah, she goes in that garage. She's going to meet her demise. Sadly.
What a kill.
What a kill. Maybe one of the most unique kills. That and potentially one at the end, but a very unique kill. So she goes into the garage. She goes into the the beer fridge in the garage, right? And she's getting those bottles. So just, I don't know, like 7, 8 bottles. Like, no one helps her. She goes in and just getting like eight bottles. And as she turns back to go to the house, the door is locked, so she can't get back in the house. So she realizes that she can get out through the garage door. So she opens that garage door and she's walking towards it with all of her beers in hand. And the garage door starts to close. And so she turns around and Ghostface is now in that garage door.
Yep.
He's shutting that garage door. So she's basically has no way out now. She's using those beer bottles. She's throwing at beer bottles as a weapon, throwing them at him. And she realizes that she might just be able to fit through that doggy door in the garage door.
Was there any world where she could get through?
I don't think there was. Yeah. And not only she gets through and then she's stuck there. So, so she squeezes through. She manages to get halfway through. And so her waist is effectively there. And she's just like dangling from this doggy door. And then, Ghostface is like, well, here's my chance. So now he raises that garage door. It goes all the way up and it just smushes her.
Squashes her head.
Squashed, yeah.
She's dangling and her head just gets squashed.
And everybody
legs
has
that memory of watching it in theater. It's like
I know that you remember the clothing she was wearing. It was like so horrific.
Oh yeah, it was so horrific.
Right? And she was kind of a lovable character, right? Yeah. Kind of the goofy best friend. But okay, very supportive of Sydney.
Have you ever seen the design of the garage door? Was strange, like a doggy door, a doggy door in the garage door. That's not like a common thing.
Well, also I think if there was a doggy door hear me out, in the garage door. Why wasn't there a doggy door in like the door to the house? Because
Yeah,
was that
exactly.
dog or cat just going to come in there and just chill in the garage?
Yeah,
You know,
I think
or
exactly.
like wild animals could come in. You could
Yeah,
get a
they were
coyote in
taking,
there.
they were raccoons.
Little baby bear, maybe. Get in there. They're up in Northern California.
Yeah,
There's lots of things up there. Definitely
that's true.
coyotes.
Yeah, very strange, very
Yeah.
strange.
It
Weird
definitely
design.
wasn't made for a human to crawl through whilst escaping Ghostface Ash. I'll tell you that.
But when they were writing the script, when he's writing the script, Kevin Williams said he's trying to think of these creative kills, right? And he's like, I got one.
got
No
it.
one's ever done this. Let's put a doggy door and squash her head.
Yeah, yeah. So Tatum gone at that point, sadly. So now we go back into the living room, right? And I think this was a very pivotal scene. Randy is just continuing to get more and more drunk. He's drinking beer at the time.
Yes.
And he's very obsessed with horror movies, but we learn a really important thing. We learn the three rules to how to survive a horror movie, right? And again, like you said at the beginning, right? Very meta. It's kind of a movie within a movie. We're learning the rules. It's so great. And so those three rules, number one, you can't have sex.
Yeah.
Much to everyone's very like upset about this as he talks about the rules. Number two, you can't drink or do drugs.
And they're like, boo.
Like, boo.
As they
and
continue
number
to drink.
three, as they, chug down their beers. Number three, you can't say, I'll be right back.
Right.
Because you won't be back. Right.
You won't be back.
So that was great. And I love kind of that knowledge and just this taking kind of everything we knew about horror movies and slasher films at the time and kind of laying it all out there. So then, Billy arrives at this party. So Sydney's there, Billy arrives, and she's very quick to forgive him.
Yeah.
And be okay with this. Stu suggests they go up to his parents' room.
Yeah, it's the parents' room.
Yeah. And you know what's going to happen there. So they go up there, and Sydney and Billy have sex, I guess, for the first time, I think, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
So again, he gets his way, she agrees to it. So while all this is going on, Gail Weathers shows up again. Gail Weathers and her cameraman Kenny, right? Again, she's wherever the action is. So she has no qualms about coming to a high school party, like the middle of nowhere.
She's popular, right? With the young boys up to 24.
Yeah,
He's a little celebrity.
Right. That's right. So he's like very proud to walk into this party with her. And so he brings her into the party because Dewey's there, right, to keep an eye on things. So he brings Gail Weathers in. She managed to smuggle in a camera. So she gets a camera. And again, so great. She puts a camera, hides it in the living room. Yeah. And so we're able to see and watch them as they watch the movie. And so we can see all that back in the camera. Kenny's able to watch all that. But we learn that there's actually a 30-second delay on it. And that's a really important part too, right? And I love that. So Gail and Dewey, you know, they're hanging out. Dewey has to go check out a car that's been abandoned down the road. So he asks Gail to go with him, and they walk down. There's clearly some sparks there, right? I mean, I think it's not just on his end. There's definitely sparks there between Gail and Dewey, especially at that point. Yeah.
And I think we should mention too that the father, at this point, they can't find the father, like Sydney's father. Like
That's right.
They called the Hilton.
He's
Airport
not at the
hotel.
Hilton at the airport.
He's not there, everybody.
Not there.
Just throwing that out there. We don't know where Sydney's father
You're
is.
right. We don't know. We do know there's an abandoned car, and Dewey and Gail are on their way towards it. So they eventually get there. You know, I think some of the kids ended up leaving because they found out that the principal was dead, and so they were like, "We got to see this." So again,
hanging from a flagpole in the football field.
I know.
They're like, let's go.
Like, my God. But at least they got out of there, right, Ash? So at that point, I think the only people that are left at the house are Stu. Tatum's dead. Randy, who's just watching Halloween alone. He's fine with that, right? He's just watching it alone. And then you've got Sydney.
I hear you, Randy.
And Billy. Yeah. I mean, I've done it many times.
Yeah.
And Sydney and Billy upstairs. So Dewey and Gail find that car, and Dewey immediately recognizes that it is Neil Prescott's car. He's like, what is he doing here? Right. So I think all this time you're like, oh my God, is Sydney's father the killer? Is he Ghostface?
Yeah.
And then we find out the sheriff calls and finds out that all the calls were coming from Neil Prescott's cell phone.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know. So
he was the killer all along.
He's the killer. Yeah. He killed Maureen.
Avenging his wife's, or he killed, I guess at that
Maybe
point.
he killed his wife. Yeah. So back to the aftermath of Cindy and Billy. So they're finishing up or finished, getting dressed again. And again, even after all of that, Sydney still seems a little suspicious of him. So she's asking Billy, she's like, who was your call? Who was your call?
As she's brushing her hair.
Brushing her. Where did that hairbrush come from? So
she just hairbrushes it. It was just like,
I don't know.
The parents,
Stu's the mother. I think she just picks up, they just had sex in this parent's bed. And then she just picks up that hairbrush and is just brushing her hair whilst redressing.
See, I thought that was a nod to Halloween. So.
I think that probably was a nod to Halloween with the sister.
The sister brushing her hair.
Oh, I love that. It was a very similar brush, actually.
Post-coitus brushing of the hair.
Post-coitus. So, she's still suspicious of us. And Billy's like, when are you going to believe me? And then all of a sudden, Ghostface comes in and stabs Billy. Right. So Sydney sees Ghostface.
Stabs Billy.
Yes. Stabs Billy.
Exclamation.
We see Ghostface, we see Billy's back. We see Ghostface. We see blood on Billy when he turns around. We hear commotion, but we don't actually see the stabbing. And so she now is running away from Ghostface yet again.
Yeah. This time she at least goes out the window.
She does. So she jumps out she's going out the window and then she falls into like the boat, I believe it is, right? And so
that was a lucky break. Yeah.
That was a lucky break that the boat was there. So at this point she's getting out. She goes up to the cameraman, Kenny. So she's asking for help. And so Kenny inside that cameraman, Kenny, watching the video. It's so great. So we see from the video, right? We see that Randy's inside the room and we see Ghostface behind him. So Randy's watching this is very meta. He's watching Halloween. He's watching Laurie Strode and Michael Myers being behind her, being like, look behind you. And Ghostface was actually behind him this whole time. And so we see this from the 30-second delay camera.
They're like, Randy, turn around. Like they're trying to warn him.
But then they realize there's a 30-second delay. So, Ghostface is already at that van. Ghostface kills Kenny. Sydney's able to survive it. I know. Kenny didn't do anything, He was just there to help Gail Weathers.
Yeah. And take her abuse. Her verbal abuse.
She was not nice to him.
No.
But Sydney's able to escape Ghostface once again. Dewey's made his way back to the house at that point, right? He's trying to check things out. At that point, he still thinks it's Neil Prescott is the killer.
Yeah.
And so he comes out. Sydney makes her way back. Dewey's coming out the door and Dewey's been stabbed. So we see, the killer's obviously in the house. The killer is now stabbed Dewey. And Dewey just falls to what we thought was his demise, right, on the front porch. But we learned later that it was not.
And this is a recurring theme for all the Scream movies with Dewey.
It is.
Except one.
Yeah. I know. He's like a cat, He's got some 9 lives there.
Absolutely.
So Gail and Dewey had been separated, I guess. She goes back, she finds Kenny's dead body. She gets the hell out of there, but ends up like crashing into a tree. So again,
she was like she was like the smart one.
She was like, I'm getting out of here. I'm not going back in that house and dealing with this.
Yeah.
But Sydney tries to escape in a car too, but there's no keys in the car. So she has a standoff with Ghostface there as he's like unlocking the doors and she's in the car. But she eventually escapes and she ends up back in that house too. But as she's going back in, this is such a great scene. So we're really nearing, that pivotal like end of the movie where the Ghostface is revealed. Yeah. Yes. And so she's going back in the house and Stu and Randy come upon her, right? And they're both telling her that the other one is the killer. So Randy's being like, it's Stu, it's him. And then Stu's being like, no, it's him, it's Randy. And, she doesn't know like who to believe at that point.
But that's the one thing I didn't really get because she just saw Randy on the video with Ghostface in the background. So it couldn't be Randy, right? But
did she see that though? Or was that just Kenny that saw it and she came upon? Okay.
No, she was there. Yeah, she was in the thing and saw that. So that was like a little bit of a...
But I think she made the right move there. She's like, She's like,
F you both.
I don't trust either of you. Like, I don't think so. So she goes in and we learn, what do we learn, Ash, when she goes back in the house?
Well, Billy Loomis comes down those stairs hurting.
He's not dead.
He's not dead. And he's just like, ah. And she's like, Billy. And he's like, it's okay. What's going on? Give me the gun. And then
she gives him the gun. She gives him the gun. Yeah. She gives him the gun.
He opens the door.
Yeah, he opens the door. He lets Stu and Randy in. He shoots Randy in the shoulder, and then she realizes that Billy's the bad guy, and so is Stu.
Well, the best part was him when he licks the blood. And it's like corn syrup, just like whatever Carrie they used in Carrie. And you're like, oh,
that's right. You're like,
plot
oh
twist.
No, yeah, like you were right all along Billy. To be suspicious of your shitty boyfriend. Yes. Yeah. So at this point, after Billy shoots Randy, we learned that Stu was also involved. So both Stu and Billy are Ghostface. So there's actually not one, but two. So
Two killers.
the two killers.
Totally a new like a
it
paradigm
was.
shifting ending for horror movies, having the two killers.
Yes.
That's never happened before.
No. Oh, I love that paradigm shift in horror movies. Yes.
It was, yeah. The two
Completely agree,
killers.
Ash. Yeah. And so we learned through this too that not only are they Ghostface killing people, but they killed her mom too.
Yeah.
Right. So we didn't know this. So we learn, and he's like, what motive? And then we do learn that actually, yeah. They did have a motive, right? Billy did have a motive.
But Stu didn't know that. Stu did not know.
Yeah,
that
Stu
Billy
didn't
had a
know
motive.
that.
He was just in it for like the love of horror movies.
I guess. Just
Billy was
fun.
using him.
Well, there's some theories on that too, though, right? That there's like potentially a love triangle there. But yeah.
Wait, who's in the love triangle? Stu
and Billy. Well,
they love each other?
Yes.
Oh, they love each other. Oh, I see.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Stu loved Billy.
Yeah. You don't think it was reciprocated, Ash?
I do not think it was reciprocated.
Unrequited love.
Billy was evil. Yeah, Billy was a creep.
Unrequited love with Stu. So they learned that, Billy, Maureen Prescott, Sydney's mom, had been having an affair with Billy's dad. And that's the reason that I guess his mom left. And so Billy blamed Sydney and her mom, I guess, right?
And she's
so
like
they
calling
killed her.
them. Yeah, and she's like calling them sick. And then Billy has that really iconic quote. He's like, "Now, Sid, don't blame the movies, right? Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative." I love that.
I know.
So
Do you know that line in itself caused so many issues when they were getting their rating?
No, I did not know that.
So this movie was originally supposed to be their original rating was NC-17 because of that line.
Oh,
because
really?
that line, yes, because they were very worried that people were going to watch this, right, and like get motivated.
Oh,
and so they had to fight.
Motivated.
Yeah, so they really had to fight to get the R
Cliff's
rating.
Notes on how to be a serial killer.
Yeah, exactly. And so they really had to fight to get that R rating because in NC-17, I mean, the audience just wouldn't have been the same, right? So they eventually got it, but yeah, I guess that line was very problematic, and Kevin Williamson fought to keep it in. So on top of all of that, we also learned that Neil Prescott, you know what, Ash, he never did make it to the Hilton at the airport.
No, he didn't.
No, this
What
whole
are clients
time.
gonna do?
Yeah,
whole
I know,
time.
my client was
It's
just
only
left.
been a day. It's not like
I know,
it
you're
was
right.
like
This whole
literally
thing took place in
3
2 days, right? Yeah, it's like a weekend.
like the Casey death, and then the next day at school with Sydney at home, and then the next day was the party. Yeah, 3 days.
Yes, it was 3 days, 2.5 really.
You can't even call a missing person until 72 hours. So
yeah. Well, he wasn't missing. He was tied up, I guess, at Stu's house this whole time. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess.
So he comes out. We realize, that Neil is there at the house, tied up. They were going to frame him for the murders, the Ghostface murders, just like they framed Cotton Weary the year prior. So we do find out that they did clone. They cloned Neil Prescott's cell phone. And they were making the calls. And so they showed, they have that little voice alterer thing. But this is, at this point, right, they explain the whole story to her. So it's essentially they explain exactly what's going to happen. And then they're like, okay, they're going to be the heroes, but like they have to hurt themselves, right? So they have to show that they were fighting back. So then Billy and Stu just stab each other.
They kept, don't go too deep and keep it to the side.
And they were like, there's like, I'm getting woozy. They like,
I'm getting a little woozy here.
Such a good line.
So good. That's what you think of when you think of the ending of Scream. It's so good. I like when they explain everything though, because whenever they explain everything, that's not what you're going to see. You know what I mean?
No.
Like you either show it or you tell it. So
yeah, absolutely. And so they're all explaining it to her. Sue's like, you guys are like crazy. And then at this point, as they go to stab each other, he goes to get Neil. I think Stu puts the gun down at some point in the kitchen. This is the final scene in the kitchen. Stu puts the gun down.
Yeah.
And as they're stabbing each other, he goes back. The gun's gone. And Gail Weathers comes back. So she did not die in the van when she hit that tree, right? She's goddamn resilient. So she comes back. She takes the gun. She goes to shoot them, but the safety's on. She gets attacked by Stu. So again, we think, that she's met her demise.
She just like hits her head on something and then falls next to
They
Dewey.
immediately do, yeah.
And they're like,
Dewey just out
she's
there
dead.
on the porch. She's gone.
Yeah.
She's gone. We don't have to worry about her. But as all this commotion was happening, they go back, and Sydney and her dad are no longer in the kitchen, and the phone rings. And I love this. So they turn it on its head, right? So now they are calling, but not only that, right? So we should talk about this. So they call. And they're like, where are we or whatever. So now they're hiding. They can't find them. Mm-hmm. And then she comes out Sydney comes out of the closet dressed as Ghostface. So why does she have to put the mask? Why
I
does she have to
don't
put the
know.
mask and the cloak on? Like they knew it was her and they knew they were Ghostface.
Yeah,
So she like turns it around and she attacks Billy with the umbrella.
yeah, it was so funny. Yeah, I have no idea why. And she had the time to
Was
put
she?
that on. Like,
Yeah, she did. And like,
where'd she
where
find
was it? She just, I think
Where
she
was
just like
it?
found it in the closet. So like Stu
She's
just
like,
had that
I'll
in the
just put
coat
this
closet.
on.
Yeah.
So apparently, when she hits Billy with that green umbrella,
The
that really
umbrella, yeah.
iconic scene,
Yeah.
apparently his reaction was real because he had some like heart surgery when he was younger,
Oh,
and there was
yeah.
some like scar thing, and she hit
Oh
it
my God.
right. She hit that exactly on, like right on point, and he was like, and if we rewatch it, like his face was like, ah, like it is like
Oh
painful.
God.
And they
Well,
left it in.
well, I guess, and that's amazing. And
Yeah.
when Billy hit Stu with the phone, I guess that was real too. Like he's like, he threw it back at him. So great. A lot happens in those last 5 minutes.
It's so good.
It's so good. So that umbrella did its job, right? So now
Yeah.
Billy's, I guess, taken, he's down on the floor. But again, they leave him. They don't, she drops the gun. She doesn't continue to fight there. But her and Stu continue to fight. And I think other than Tatum's death, I think Stu's death is one of the best also. So they're like fighting in the living room. And she like puts that TV on his head.
Yeah.
So she like pulls the old school TVs. So these aren't like flat screens. These are like the old school TVs. She just like pushes that thing over and it just like crushes his head, I guess. I
And
don't
like
know. He
electrocutes
dies.
him.
Yeah, I think so. So that's how Stu dies. But at this point, Billy's back. Billy's still there.
Can't kill him.
You can't kill him. And you know who else you can't kill? Gail Weathers.
You can't. She's
Gail
coming
Weathers,
back.
Dewey's out there like passed out, done. Gail Weathers gets back up, picks up that gun again, and shoots Billy.
Yeah. She's like, safety's off this time.
Yeah. So Gail Weathers saves the day. So she kills Billy. Randy comes too. Randy's not dead. So we've got Gail, we've got Randy, we've got Sydney. Randy has that kind of iconic line at the end that, they often they come back for one last scare. And we see that, right? Billy's like, "Ugh." And Sydney shoots him right in the head. Yeah.
Right in the head.
Right
Bullseye.
in the head. Yeah.
Bam.
And so now it's the aftermath. The cops are finally showing up. And no one had called the cops before then too. Like no one.
Nobody.
Yeah, no one. No. That it's like
Why
this
didn't
has been
Sydney?
like
I mean, Sydney must have when she took the phone with her father.
I would think.
Or she was more concerned with putting the ghost face.
Yeah, she needed to put that back on. Yeah.
And now her DNA is all over it. I don't know. She's kind of kick ass in this movie. But that was a weird
a weird choice. It wasn't necessary. And so the cops show up. And Gail, we learn that Dewey's not dead, so he's getting taken out. He's still alive. Dewey survived.
Remember the people like cheering in the theater?
Oh yeah, because
right?
Dewey, I guess, was pretty lovable. Yeah, I guess we loved him, right?
He becomes more lovable.
Yeah. He's kind of a doofus in this one, but yeah, he kind of saves the day more in later ones. But yeah, and then Gail takes one last opportunity to cover that horrific night. And that is Scream. We got through it, Ash.
So good. Cheers. So speaking of Scream, do you know what the original name for the movie was?
I do.
Yeah, so it was originally called Scary Movie.
I know. I love that because the parody was called that.
Yeah. And I guess when they wrapped it, like they have all the merch and everything. There's still a Scary Movie on it, but they switched it. And
they did. Oh, yeah. I didn't know that. Okay, cool.
So, but thank goodness they switched it. Scream is such a better name. And then we have the Scary Movie franchise. So Kevin Williamson wrote it. And do you know what it was based on? What he based this on?
I do, but please tell it.
A little Florida connection here.
I know. I want you to tell it.
It was based off
Florida.
Yeah, since I'm like 2 hours away. So it's based off the idea of the Gainesville Ripper. So he was Danny Rolling. He killed a bunch of college kids at the University of Florida in the 90s. And he went to prison and was executed in like 2006. But I guess Kevin Williamson he wanted to do some kind of movie related to that, but he was home watching the documentary on the Gainesville Ripper.
Yeah.
And it was in the evening, it was at nighttime, and then he could have sworn like he shut a window, but it was open. It had opened. And he spent the whole night like just locking the doors and just checking every inch of his house. And that gave him the idea of, I guess, like, a lot of the acts that we see in Scream.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Gainesville Ripper, what a name.
I know. I'd be so scared too. Like you were convinced that the window was shut and then it was open. Oh, I wouldn't be able to sleep.
I mean, I feel like this happened to me before. And another thing about the movie, Drew Barrymore, we talked about her, that iconic opening scene, but she was supposed to play Sydney.
I know.
Yeah. So
She
and then
didn't want to. She
No.
wanted to play like kind of off character, like be the most famous person in it
Yeah.
and play the person that dies. And I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it means she couldn't be in the sequels, but she wanted they wanted that like Janet Leigh psycho moment, right? Like
Yeah.
very similar to that with even with
Yeah.
the blonde hair and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess apparently Sydney was supposed to live on Elm Street. I think that's in the original script. She lived on Elm Street. They never talk about it.
Yeah.
But it almost feels like it's in that kind of same universe, right? Like Nancy
does.
and everyone. I love it.
And just like the house parties in general,
Yeah.
like all of that just has like the vibe of
Yes.
all of our favorite slasher films.
Yes.
Right? They're kind of bringing it back.
Reinvigorated. Exactly. It reinvigorated slasher horror.
Yeah.
It hadn't done much since then. I think when you were talking about earlier that, it was kind of one of the first meta ones. The only contention I have with that is that Wes Craven's New Nightmare was kind of
Right.
before then, right? And so that
That's
was Wes
true.
Craven sort of coming back into horror. That one didn't do so great, I think, at the box office, but like has become such a classic. I think we all love that movie.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, this came out. So I think those are fantastic 90s ones, meta horror movies.
And Wes Craven makes a cameo in like all of the Scream movies
Yeah.
as well,
Yes.
or the first four, I
Yes.
guess.
I think in
But
all
they
those
had to
movies, yes.
convince him. They had to convince him to do it because
I
they couldn't
know.
find a director at first.
He didn't want to get back into horror.
Yeah.
I think because New Nightmare kind of didn't do as well, right?
Right.
At the beginning. Yeah.
So 1996, where did we see this one?
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember if we actually saw it in December 96 or if it was January 97, but we definitely saw it together, Ash.
Yeah.
I believe at the Vogue Theater in
Yes.
Miramichi, New Brunswick.
Yes, this old school. We always talk about this a lot.
It was such a great place to watch movies.
Old school, like really, really old school theater. And they just had like the one screen. And I always say it, the best popcorn. It had the best popcorn.
Yes.
We went with some of our friends and we watched it. Yeah,
we did.
it was
We were so excited.
it was so good. And I remember absolutely loving it and being, just enthralled by that first 12 minutes with Drew
I know.
Barrymore. But what a good movie.
And you didn't know, like, again, this was like kind of before, obviously before social media, internet was kind of just becoming a thing. And so you really had no idea. And I think we didn't, our Vogue movie theater wouldn't get movies kind of the opening weekends. I think we had
Right.
to wait. Like the anticipation was strong.
Alone.
Yeah. We were excited, but
And it
I think
has
we're
such a
lucky it was
good-
out in the theater.
Yes, absolutely. It had such a good poster too. I love the
yeah.
poster. It was one of the first ones to put all like the actors like in that little V shape, and then
Yes.
everyone copied it.
Oh,
after
yeah, then they all
that,
did it. Yeah.
it was so good. Okay, it's time for Screamometer. Allie, what do you got? What's your rating? I like when you give yours
I know.
first.
You always make me go first.
Yeah.
And I'll take that on, Ash. I'll take it on. You know how important this movie was to us in the 90s.
so important.
So important. Screamometer, and I'm basing this totally on Scream, so scariness of the movie. I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10 on the Screamometer, a 4 out of 10. Great movie, right? Great dialogue, unique at the time. Scary, not really, other than, the bone. Not that scary. Certainly not on rewatch. 4 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I don't think it's that scary. I think it's an amazing movie. I did, however, give it a 5. I gave it a 5.
You did. Okay, I thought for the first time we were going to be like aligned, or one of the
Aligned.
first times. Yeah.
I was just about to I'm going to go with the one I wrote down. I wrote down 5. 5 for scares. The mask alone is hilarious. Like,
The voice is good. Actually, the voice is good, but once you see the mask, it kind of takes that away.
the voice is good. And like, if you're like alone in a room watching that first scene with Drew Barrymore, like that is scary.
It is.
And there were some scary points, but like him running around like the Grim Reaper with
Flailing
with the
Kind of
mask.
always just flailing about. Yeah.
It's like so funny. And there's a lot of moments in the background and they line the music up with it. Ghostface like running around in the woods. I didn't really find it scary, but definitely iconic and just a great movie, an enjoyable horror movie for sure.
Yeah, very enjoyable from beginning to end, an enjoyable one, but not super scary. So I'm glad we're aligned there, Ash.
We are aligned on this. Yes. Okay, we are moving on to Sip and Tell, where we discuss our personal experiences related to the content of Scream. Do you have anything for this?
I'd love to say that I had like a creepy caller or something, something related. I don't. One thing I do have, obviously we were a kid, we were obsessed with this. My husband and I, current husband and I, actually dressed up
Yeah.
as Ghostface and Casey Becker for Halloween a few years ago. I'll post the picture on Instagram. We took, he went the Casey Becker route. I dressed as Ghostface. I have a fantastic photo on Instagram.
I
and I'll
don't
post
remember
it.
this.
Oh, it was so good. Yeah. We went to our friends hosted that Halloween party every year, and we're like, what are we going to do? And we're like, I always really wanted to do Scream. And then so we switched it up though. And we had him wear the blonde wig and
Oh
the
my
beige
goodness.
sweater. We got him a beige sweater.
Oh, that's so
And we couldn't
good.
find like the right like cell phone, but
And
in
this
any case,
guy's like
we
a
had the cell
huge
phone.
guy.
Yeah,
Like,
it
this
was great.
is hilarious.
It was great. And then I just had to wear that mask. I mean, it was like the easiest costume ever, the mask and like the cloak. And the best thing about this party is that someone else showed up as Ghostface. And so we were like, this is even more accurate.
The
because
two
the
killers.
Two killers. Yeah. So we have this really good photo, and I need to find it and post that. We have a really great photo of the two of us with my current husband dressed as Casey Becker, and it's amazing. So I took it to that level. You know that I always enjoy dressing up for Halloween.
You do.
Yeah.
You always, and I always enjoy your photos. The one thing I do have is, and I think we talked about this on a previous episode. Again, it's about that mask. So we lived in a small town, and we went out like trick-or-treating, like early high school, I think, because we still trick-or-treated in high school.
Oh, we did. We definitely
cool
did.
thing. I don't know if it was cool.
Side of the road.
And all of our friends, we all dressed up as like the 5 psychopathic killers. And we're like, all right, so who are we going to be? And this was like probably right around the time of Scream, or like a few years later.
Yeah.
And so we were like Michael, Freddie, the guy from I Know You Did Last Summer. Like,
I was the guy from I Know You Did Last Summer. Yeah.
At the bottom of the barrel. And the Scream guy, and I forget who the other one was. Oh, the other one was
you
like
were the
Chucky.
Scream guy, right?
Chucky? Who was the 5th? No,
Michael Myers, Jason.
Yeah.
Freddie.
Jason. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Jason. Yeah.
Was I the Scream guy? I think I was.
You were the Scream guy, but
we couldn't get the mask. Like, you couldn't buy it online.
No, it was sold out that year. This was because I think this is the year it came out, Ash.
I'm dying. So
you made it.
I got like a Grim Reaper mask. It was just black, and I painted it white.
Yes, you did.
I painted it white, and like no one knew who I was.
No.
You said, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "I'm Ghostface." No, it was like a cheap,
like what?
Ghostface.
A homemade. Ash made a homemade version of Ghostface. Everybody,
a homemade version. It didn't have like the elongated face.
No.
One of our moms still has it.
I know. I wish we had a picture.
Funny. I know. I'm kind of thankful we don't have a picture. No social media back then.
Yeah, I'm a little thankful for that too.
And yeah, but wearing that mask was pretty good though, because you could breathe in it. Like, it wasn't too bad. It was like a cloth.
Yeah, I gotta say the new one, I couldn't breathe at all in that.
Yeah.
So the picture I'll post on Instagram. No,
I put it on for the
photos. Yeah, I could have made a homemade one.
I think my homemade
Do you think
one,
I didn't think about that? I think about that every time I watch this movie.
I think my homemade one was scarier than the one they had in the movie. Like, it was scary just for like the craftsmanship. Yeah. They're like, what the hell is this?
You should have said that to Kevin Williamson and like try this for the sequel.
No, it's like those things. It's like you get something on like Wish, you know, what you think it's going to be, what you order. And like what I ordered was like the online version. But yeah, so that's my sip and tell story.
I remember it fondly, Ash. I
dressed up as Ghostface or Ghostface. A poor man's Ghostface.
You were committed.
I was committed. All right, we are moving on to Sips and Scares, where we discuss the scariest parts of Scream. What's your number one? I feel like we have the same one. What is it?
We definitely have the same one. Casey's body hanging from the tree, and when they zoom in, when they zoom in, she's just dangling there, and it's the camera work is so good. 100%.
Yeah. That shook me. Even on rewatch, I was like, "Oh my God!"
Me too.
It's so scary. Zooming into her face, it's so scary.
It's so disturbing. They do such a good job with it. It's like Drew Barrymore's face. It was amazing. Yeah,
got
even on
it,
rewatch,
and like
still loved it.
Oh my God, yeah. That was chilling. Absolutely chilling. I thought the kills, the Tatum scene, I don't know if it was scary per se, but you're like, oh my God, I'm
anxious.
Like, could that happen on a garage door?
Am I anxious about garage doors? I am anxious about garage doors. You think I wasn't?
I think we're all anxious about garage doors. I don't know the mechanics of that. Like, she gets smushed real quick.
Yeah. There's sensors now, Ash, in garage doors. Like, I think
because of that movie.
I think that movie. They were like, "Oh, we got to do something."
And if they had the pet door, they're like boarding that up. They're like, "I don't think so. You're not going to go out there."
I want to know who did though, listeners. Did anyone have like a pet door in their garage? Like, I don't understand that.
I don't understand it either.
Yeah,
and like, I don't know, not good. That one was good, and I thought the delay from the video with the 30-second delay when you see Ghostface behind Randy. And then all of a sudden he's outside the van, and then he slits the cameraman's throat. And that was pretty good.
That was really good because they realized the delay and it was so good. I have another one for me. I have two, but one of the ones for me that I thought was so great when we were rewatching it. So it's, that first phone call, and she's like, he wants to know her name, right? So Ghostface is talking to Casey Becker and he wants to know her name. And he's like, because I want to know who I'm looking at.
Yes.
And so I know I talked about this earlier in synopsis, but that was just really creepy. And she's like, wait, what? He's like, I want to know who I'm talking to.
Yes.
So that was like when it got kind of menacing, and I love that part.
Yeah. And it switched the whole tone of the movie.
It did.
It's on.
It's on.
Yeah, that one was really good. I think too, I loved the scene outside the house party when Sid's being chased by Ghostface, and she gets into the car. She tries to drive away, and then she locks all the doors, and then
it's so good.
He's outside the window dangling the keys.
I know.
And then he plays that little like cat and mouse game with her. Like he's unlocking the door. He's unlocking each door, and then she's like frantically trying to close it.
Again,
and then
very
comes in
anxious.
through the back.
You're anxious like throughout that entire thing. So good.
Yeah, that was really good. I like the way they did that one. And then we already talked about like the farmhouse, just the farmhouse vibes at night are just like very secluded out in the middle of nowhere, like just sets the scene. Very scary.
It does. But okay, one thing, I need to talk about this because to this day, something that haunts me, something that I think about all the time.
All the time, ladies and gentlemen. Okay.
All the time. And I'll tell you my personal experience with this. I guess I could have talked about this earlier.
Yeah, and Sip and Tell. Where were you in Sip and
I
Tell?
know. Well, I'm bringing it up now. Steve. You know where I'm going to go with this. Steve tied up on that patio door. So when she turns on that light to her patio, Steve is there tied up.
Yes.
That scene. And I had this patio. There was no pool in the back, but I had a patio when I lived in California. Same thing. You turn the light on. I swear, every time I turned that light on, you were like almost expecting, and you were like scared. Like, am I going to see someone tied up? Am I going to see something with that light in my backyard? I think, to this day, a patio light like that, I always think of it. So I think that was incredibly scary, incredibly effective. Yeah. And that still haunts me.
And the steam like coming up from the pool, that whole scene was very eerie.
It was so eerie.
I 100% agree. That was a good one. So I think just some iconic scenes that like stick with you.
They do.
Right? And that's what makes this movie so great.
Yeah.
It's a mix of like comedy and horror.
It is.
The meta horror, all of the different aspects of it. Just so good.
And I guess, as I was reading about this, I guess Skeet Ulrich didn't realize that it was a part comedy movie. And so he's like...
that tracks.
That tracks.
That tracks.
He's a little intense throughout the entire thing. He's like serious the whole time, and he didn't realize that it was supposed to be also a comedy. And so when Matthew Lillard and Jamie Kennedy, as their characters, were kind of riffing off each other and joking, like he was so confused. And he was like, what are they doing?
Oh, really?
And I love that because
because
he's so serious the whole time in it. And he's always giving Stu like the knowing glances. Do you notice that on rewatch?
I thought it was like pretty obvious.
Yeah, on rewatch. But I think the first time, but he's always like, I didn't say you did. When you're talking about killing someone, it's like, okay, because you killed him. But anyway, but I love that. So watch throughout the whole movie, Skeet Ulrich, Billy Loomis's character is very serious, and he like never jokes around. And apparently the actor didn't know that it was a comedy.
That's so
also.
good.
Yes.
I did not know that, but I think you needed it because not everyone could be the comic relief, right?
No.
So he had to be like the really intense one.
He did.
I love
You're
that.
right. You're right.
But he doesn't do that in every other. He's intense in everything. He was intense in Riverdale. He played the dad, Jughead's
He's
dad
just
in
got
Riverdale.
that face. He has like resting intense face or something. Like he's just like
resting creep face. Billy Loomis.
Well cast as a creep.
Very well cast. And like you think he's supposed to kind of be similar to Glenn. Right. But Glenn from Nightmare on Elm Street, but Glenn was very lovable. Right.
Yes.
So
yes.
I love that. All right, it's time for cliches and ripoffs. So what were the cliches, the horror movie cliches in this movie? What ripped off it and what did it rip off? And I have okay. I think we have
there's some obvious ones. We have the same first one, but I am gonna throw a wrench in for another one. But Ash, explain the first one. I know it's the same as mine.
So the opening scene is pretty much, it's almost like a complete remake of When a Stranger Calls, right?
Yes.
The call is coming from inside the house. Like that's, we were talking earlier, like is this the scariest or the best like opening scene of a horror movie? No, I think
you're right.
When a Stranger Calls is better.
I agree.
Just that whole, and it's about the same, the 12 minutes. She's like she's babysitting.
It's When a Stranger Calls back, right, Ash? It's the sequel. I guess the first one had the same.
When a Stranger Calls, it was the first one. When a Stranger Calls,
So
When a Stranger Calls back is not as good. But When a Stranger Calls, she's like babysitting, and you think the call is coming from outside. It's very similar to this. He's calling her. It's like basically Scream, but it did it first. And then at the end, you find out that the call is coming from inside the house. He had like kidnapped the kids, and it's this whole thing.
It's
very, very
good. So good.
But I thought that's the most obvious one. And then obviously Halloween, but
So much Halloween.
Halloween's playing in the background.
Yeah, but the beginning is Halloween, that voyeurism that we talked about when we talked about Halloween. It's the same thing, right? Casey's Becker is being watched. And so definitely, maybe not rip off, right? I mean, certainly Kevin Williamson was inspired by it and weaved a lot of Halloween into this movie.
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of the cliches too, like her running up the stairs, dropping things, like, dear God, like Jamie Lee Curtis kept dropping the knife. They dropped that gun so many times. And one of our listeners commented on that.
I know.
They're like, why did she drop the gun? You're like, exactly. Why did you drop the gun? You dropped the gun, but you put the Ghostface costume on, Sydney. Like some weird choices there at the end. Not gonna lie. And then, Nightmare on Elm Street, they basically recreate that scene where Glenn comes over to Nancy's bedroom window. I loved that as well. That was basically a recreation.
And we talked about this, right? They had Linda Blair in it too. It was so great as the reporter. Okay, I have one for you. And you talked about this scene. Oh. And I talked about it a bit in sequels. And Go for it. And it popped into my head. So when Sydney is in the car, right, and she's trying to get away and she doesn't have the keys and they keep opening it, Cujo. I definitely think that was inspired by Stephen King's Cujo. Like, absolutely. Yes. And damn, I feel like I didn't watch Cujo like when it first came out, and I watched it later in life. Cujo's so terrifying. It's so terrifying. That dog with rabies, and she's in this car. But I thought that was definitely Cujo. Yeah. Yeah.
Cujo's maybe that's our next one.
Yes, let's revisit Stephen King. We haven't done that since the first episode. Let's do Cujo. Let's do Pet Sematary drink.
As a dog lover, I'm interested to see how I'm going to be in Cujo.
It's terrifying. Well, I haven't seen it in a while, but excited to dig in. But definitely Cujo inspired.
All right, we're moving on to alternate endings. Drum roll.
I know.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have alternate endings.
Yes. We haven't had them in a while.
I know. We do. So, and I want to talk about, it's great. Actually, the alternate ending is so good. Okay.
I don't know the alternate ending, Ash. So this is my reaction is genuine. I do not know.
Okay. Here is the alternate ending. So in the original ending, not the one that we saw in the theater, but it was supposed to be that Dewey does die, right? Okay. Dewey does die. Okay. And what they did is they filmed that ambulance scene of him getting carried away just in case. They're like, just in case they want to switch it.
That's the only time we see him again.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
But so in that version, but in the version, the alternate ending, Dewey does die. And then get this is the ending. Randy lives, asks Sydney out on a date. This is how it ends. And she says, only if it's a nice Meg Ryan movie. And then the credits roll. So Randy asks Sydney out. He gets the girl.
Okay, so he's
and the credits roll.
She's bloody.
Is the ending.
So let me get this straight. She's covered in blood. Covered. He got shot in the shoulder.
That's right.
Bleeding also. Mm-hmm. And he takes that opportunity to ask her out on a date. And she agrees?
Yep. It's like she says, only if it's a nice Meg Ryan movie. Like a little romantic comedy.
Oh, I am very glad.
That was the original. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Don't like that.
No, I don't think a lot of people did. But they did. They filmed that. They filmed that version.
And then they made the right choice.
Absolutely. And then there's a non-filmed ending. So the non-filmed ending is Billy lives. He flees. They go to get him and they realize, So I don't know how
she doesn't shoot him in the head. So she doesn't shoot him in the head.
Yeah. I mean, maybe she shot him, but not in the head. And they thought that would give more tension, right, to the ending, ambiguous that you don't know where he is. But they eventually went with the one that we saw where he dies. Okay. And Dewey lives. And the hero lives on. So everyone loves Dewey.
Everyone loves Dewey. And like you said, right, he plays a big role, I think, in a lot of the sequels.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you. I'm happy with the ending we got. That alternate ending would be really weird.
I'm very happy with that. I've also, there were interviews with Matthew Lillard, and there's theories that he may still be alive, that Stu may still be alive, because you never see.
He wants to play. He wants to be Ghostface again.
You know what? I think I'd like that.
Yeah.
I would
kind of making a comeback.
Yes, he was in Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah. That's a great movie. That's
such a good one.
But yeah, those are the alternate endings. I'm glad we got the one we did.
I know, me too.
Okay, it's time for the villain. Who's the villain or villains of this movie? And I always like to throw wrenches in this one, Al, but who's your villain?
Yeah. Okay, I have a controversial one, and I have a one that I think people will agree with. I'm going
Oh
to go
my
with the one
goodness.
people will agree with first.
Okay.
The cops, the sheriff,
Yeah.
they had their killer. They, at least one of them, they had him. They had
Yeah.
him arrested. There were like too many things like peculiar lining up. Like you said, his father was even suspicious. Like he
Yeah.
didn't, there's no way he would have had an alibi. So sheriff,
And it's
definitely
always
the cop, the villain.
It's always the boyfriend. It's the boyfriend, right?
Yes.
It's always
It
the
is.
spouse
Yeah.
or the
Always
boyfriend.
the boyfriend. Yeah.
So he'd be the obvious one, and he was the last one.
Randy said that.
there.
And Randy said that in the movie when they were in the movie store, right? He's
Yeah.
like, it's the obvious suspect.
He always like freaking out. He's like, the father's a red herring. I'm telling you, he's a red herring.
He's right.
He's like yelling
Father was a red
at
herring.
everybody. I agree with that. I think the cops did a really bad job.
Okay, my controversial one. And I'm not proud of this, Ash. Let me preface it with
Oh
that.
no.
I'm not proud of this.
You're not okay.
As a feminist, I'm not proud of it.
Oh, I see.
But is Maureen Prescott the villain? I mean, she kind of, I'm not saying she brought the murder on herself. But
Right. Are you victim blaming Maureen?
I'm not victim blaming. I'm not victim blaming. But she was, having affairs. Not only was she stepping out on her own husband, but kind of like having affairs with other people, right? And married people. So she was kind of causing this. And she had a family, she had a daughter, and she was doing this. So again, not saying that she deserved to die or anything like that, but I think she did cause some trouble.
My controversial one, I guess, is the father, Sydney's father.
Neil Prescott?
Why is he leaving on the 1 year anniversary of the mom's death?
Ash, he's got that conference at the Hilton at the airport.
He just so happened to schedule it this exact date, but like leaving her alone, she probably was going to be upset that weekend.
I agree with that one. That one. Yeah. But I think he spent most of that weekend, Ash, like tied to a chair in a closet.
Yeah, no, I know. It wasn't great for him either.
No.
And I think Billy was just like a great villain. Like just creepy the whole way through. Stu was the comic relief and just kind of went along with it. So I do think Billy was the villain because it felt to me like he egged Stu on, and kind of well, if there was that romance.
I think Stu may have been in love with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is that theory. So yeah. So he was more susceptible potentially to following him, right?
Yeah. And we can talk about the villain, but there were a lot of heroes in this movie, right? Like Sydney was just like really kick-ass. Rewatching her, like, oh, she's such a great final girl. Yeah, and Gail Weathers.
Gail Weathers. I love Gail Weathers. I always say that. We have Sydney. Maybe Sydney slightly, Sydney slightly, but I think Gail she has a good arc there, right? And she was right. Gail was right all along. They caught where she was framed.
So I think when you watch it when you're younger, you love Sydney and she's like the hero. Watching it now, I'm like, oh, Gail Weathers is the hero. I know. In that one.
Yeah. I agree. I'm changing that. Yes, Gail Weathers, ultimate
because
final
Sydney
girl.
made some weird decisions, but Gail Weathers she's it. Listeners, let us know what you think. We'll do a poll on who's your favorite final girl of the Scream franchise. All right, it is time for Sips and Simmering Questions. And this is the part of the podcast where we answer questions from our listeners that they submit on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, or email. And we have some really good ones tonight. I love this one. Oh my goodness, the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, this is from I Scream, You Scream Pod on Instagram. They have a podcast and they're absolutely awesome. And their question is so good. So we're going to make it a little PG because it's a clean podcast. But so I'm altering a couple of things here, keeping it PG. But their question is kiss, marry, kill between Billy, Stu, and Randy. And they also wrote, yes, there is a correct answer. Okay.
I love that.
All right. So who are we kissing, marrying, and killing? Out of Stu, Billy, and Randy. And I'm throwing it to you.
Yeah. All right. I've got my answer. All right. Okay. Kiss. Okay. Let's do kill first, actually. Can I go the opposite way? Kill. Definitely Billy. I'm killing Billy right away. He's the creep factor there is a little too much for me. He's a lot to handle.
Yeah.
Definitely killing Billy.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, this is a tough one, kiss and marry, because I have, just Randy's an interesting character. I'm going to say kiss Stu. The humor, he's funny, right? I think the humor is attractive. And I'm going to marry Randy, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I guess I'm going to marry Randy. I guess I'm going to kiss Stu and definitely kill Billy.
So I think I agree with you on 2 out of 3, which isn't bad. And I struggled with this. I don't.
You're going to kiss Randy?
I don't want to kiss any of them, to be honest. I'm answering the question. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do
Me
it.
neither. I don't want to marry any of them either.
No, I know. But to answer the question, thought experiment. Okay.
Okay.
I'm killing Billy because too creepy.
Same.
Like, absolutely
Too
not.
much.
Like
immediately, the second you see him on the screen, he's creepy. Like,
I find him so creepy. Like,
Yeah.
how many
He's
women have you killed? Are you going to kill me? Like that's, killing him for sure. And I really struggle with the kiss and marry. Okay.
We both did.
Okay. So I am going to, and maybe this is controversial, I'm going to marry Stu because he's funny. And I think that
you want to be with him for the rest of your life, Ash. That's a life partner. Ash thinks Stu is a life partner, everybody.
I thought he was funny. And like, I
thought
don't
he was
and
funny, but like a night,
You think I couldn't spend a lifetime with Randy. I don't really like that character. I can give him a little kiss on the cheek. Okay. He's not getting a kiss on the mouth. He's getting a kiss on the cheek. Okay. Maybe the forehead. Because you're like, oh, Randy. But yeah, he's not like the romantic lead. And I don't know. I guess Stu. I mean, I know he was a killer, but I feel like he did it because he was in love with Billy. Anyway, those are mine. Let us know what you think. Let us know. Okay, Ice Cream You Scream Pod was that the correct answer? Were any of us correct?
Let us know.
Please let us know.
Were we completely wrong? Please let us know.
We're way off base. I'd like to know what you all think. All right, we have another actually. More of a comment, not really a question, from Dacker Black on Instagram. And he just wants, this is it. He wants obscure facts about minute details.
Yeah.
So he wants to know the behind the scenes and the really the details of this movie, the obscure ones at that. And we did a deep dive for you. I have lots of little nuggets to talk about. All right. So I have, these are like, I did a deep dive. These are like some really weird ones, but I really like them. So when Billy first shows up to Sydney's place, they're playing Don't Fear the Reaper. It's like a cover song of it, but it's like a nod to Halloween, I guess, because they play that song, the real version of the song when Lori and Annie are going to babysit.
That's right. Yeah. They do.
But Don't Fear the Reaper works on a few levels. Don't Fear the Reaper. He's like because they dressed as the Grim Reaper and he's like the villain. They like kind of set you up for it right away.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. And then we already talked about the driving down to the Mackenzies. They basically recreate that thing where Lori tells the kids, okay, you're going to go down to the Mackenzies.
Yes.
To ask for help. And Casey's dad basically says that to the mom, like, drive down to the Mackenzies.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool and kind of a rip off of, paying homage actually to Halloween. Here's a good one. This is definitely like a Wes Craven thing. So you said Tatum bought Rose McGowan bought all her own.
Yes, because she was supposed to be a tomboy type. So
wardrobe.
She didn't like the clothing. So she went out to like the mall and bought her own clothing.
So maybe this was her then. One of the things that she bought was the jersey, the cutoff jersey, like the really iconic midriff Berry jersey with the number 10 on it. Oh. And that's from Nightmare on Elm Street. That's Glenn. Glenn wore that. The cutoff
with
10
the cutoff.
jersey. Yes.
Oh, the one we talked about this in Nightmare on Elm Street. It was like really like he had like a
midriff Berry.
Yeah.
So that was like a little nod to him. And then I have the Wes Craven cameo. We already talked about that. The cheerleader in the bathroom, the one that was like talking about Sydney, like really kind of bitchy. That was Skeet Ulrich's girlfriend at the time, I guess. That's how she got that job.
So she got a little role. Mm-hmm. She was good. She was like playing with her hair, like talking about Sydney. They were so mean. I mean, she lost her mother.
Oh, they were so mean. I don't even like. There's no justification for that behavior. And then Henry Winkler played the principal. And I guess when he's like going through his closet, he like tries on the mask and stuff. He's
always scaring himself with the mirror though, which is so funny. He's just like,
he's always scaring himself in the mirror. That's right. But when they open the closet, the Fawn's jacket's hanging up in there.
So is it?
You have to look. You have to look close to see it. Oh, and something else they do. They kind of. I mean, this is really obvious. They show it to you right away and again, the principal, when it's in the office and he catches those two kids that dressed up as Ghostface, they're basically like foreshadowing that there's going to be two killers. Right? They do that. And like, you don't even really notice it until you watch the end, but they're basically like putting that in to warn you that there's going to be two killers. So I thought that was cool. And here's the big one. This is the big one. And I read this somewhere and I always watch for it now when I watch this movie. They tell you who the killers are in that first scene at high school. And do you know how they tell you? Yes.
At the fountain? When they're at the fountain?
Yep.
Okay.
Look at their shoes.
Okay.
So everybody's wearing colorful shoes except for Skeet Ulrich. Yeah, Billy and Stu. They're wearing those black boots.
Oh, they are. But then they show a lot of people wearing the black boots.
Later they do. But this is like the first time, and they're kind of like facing each other as well. Like their boots are facing each other. So they basically give it away in that first scene.
Wow,
so rewatch
nice.
it and see.
Okay.
It's really, really obvious when you rewatch it. But that's something I saw that somewhere, and I always look for it. But I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
Oh, that's really, well, I think when you rewatch it and there's a lot of, even their communication, the way they look at each other, it's like, there's a lot of that throughout the movie. And I love that.
Yep. So yeah, that's the deep dive. Those are some obscure facts for you. Thanks for sending in your questions, and please continue to do so. We absolutely love answering them and talking about them on the podcast. All right, it's time for Sips and Sequels. Now, Scream is an iconic franchise, right?
There's been a lot.
There's been a lot. I mean, the direct sequel was Scream 2. And what did you think of Scream 2?
Loved it. Loved Scream 2.
Yeah.
Didn't like that Randy died in Scream 2, but spoiler alert.
Well, you want to marry Randy, so
yeah, he was going to be my life partner, future husband. So he's gone.
Yeah.
Loved Scream 2, actually. I like that they kind of bring it back. Scream 3, not so much. Scream 4, but Scream 2 is definitely, the direct sequel, definitely my favorite, I think, of all of them.
Yeah, I love the direct sequel. I love that they make it even more meta by having the stab movies.
Oh, that is so good. Yeah. So good. That opening
like an onion.
Stab movies. I know.
Like
it's
layer.
Amazing. And it's Tori Spelling is playing her in the movie too. And Nev Campbell, Sydney said that, like in the first one, that's who would play her. So it was so good. Yeah.
I know. They must have had that in mind, or maybe they didn't. They wanted to see how well it would do. But that was so good.
So good.
I love number 2. Number 3. I mean, they cast a bunch of people from Dawson's Creek, right? Kevin Williamson, like Pacey.
Yes.
Pacey. What's his name?
He's in it. Wait, Joshua
he's
Jackson's
number 2.
in 3.
He's he's in 2. He's like a film student in 2.
Oh, right.
But then Scott Foley is in 3.
Yeah,
right. He's the boyfriend. They bring it back.
But so Roman, he's Roman, right? Who is the illegitimate brother of Sydney Prescott, right? So that's who he is.
What?
So Maureen Prescott.
He's her boyfriend.
Yes. No, Roman.
Scott Foley.
Yeah, he's her brother. He's like her half brother.
I thought they dated.
I don't think so. No.
Did they date? No, I thought they dated.
He's the half brother. No, he's the half brother. He's like he's the killer. Maureen, I know that. So Roman is the illegitimate brother of Sydney Prescott, right? So we found that out in the third one. I know. So okay, let's talk this through. So it can't be Maureen Prescott's son, right? Because she would have been pregnant. Like we do know she was a lady about town. We do know she was enjoying herself.
She was hiding it and
she could have been hiding
in an alleyway.
She must have been. So she was Neil Prescott's. Like Neil Prescott was also stepping out, and he had an affair, and that was Roman.
That's one big plot hole.
Yeah, I don't know. Listeners, tell us what that was. I can't remember right now, but tell us who was Roman's parents
before she got married to Neil. Was it like a previous one? Was he older?
Maybe. I think he was older. Okay, so he was older.
I don't understand this one.
So Maureen Prescott had a kid before she met her husband and had Sydney. That must be it. That must be it.
It wasn't like during her childhood.
I think you would have noticed it. Like mommy was pregnant.
Yeah. I really liked the reboot. The first reboot was so good. It was like so scary. They kind of upped the ante. You're always, you're just like, it's a game of whodunit. You're just guessing. Yeah. You're trying to guess who the killer is, right?
Yeah.
So and I can usually guess now. Well, I like when it's surprising.
One of the criticisms I will have on that is usually it's the most like the famous person. Like I think in the first one when it was like the most famous person, she dies, right? But I think they've kind of gone back to that. Or if it's someone who usually plays like a nice character, they kind of come in to play the evil one on this. And I will say that's become a bit of a horror movie cliche.
Well, they want to play the villain. They want the more interesting part.
They want to play the villain, yes.
Yeah. Drew Barrymore kind of made like, she's like, well, I'm only going to be in for 12 minutes, but I want to be like the iconic character. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scream 7's coming out next year.
I know.
And Nev Campbell's back. So.
I can't wait. I'm so glad she's back. This is so exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be so good. All right. Well, that's going to do it for Sips and Screams episode 11, Scream. Thank you so much for joining us and listening today, sending in your questions. Join us next time as we sip on more themed cocktails and discuss the good, the bad, and the truly terrifying of our favorite horror movies. Cheers.
Cheers.